Okay, guys. So before we get going here, just a couple housekeeping notes. First off, we're going to get into wins. So go ahead and start thinking about what wins you're having. And then we're going to get into questions. But before we jump into that, little housekeeping note. Next week is the 4th of July. It lands on a Thursday. And so we will not have group coaching on the 4th. Womp womp. Um, but we hope that you guys are getting to spend the day off, getting to enjoy it with family. And hopefully you're getting the 5th off too and taking that time for yourselves. But we'll be back on like normal that following week. So just wanted to let everybody know. We'll send out an email reminder as well, but just you can jump on the call next Thursday. Just we will not be there. So, but we're going to proceed today like normal. And so I would love to get into wins. What wins are we having? What good things are going on, either personal or business wise? And we celebrate them large or small. So just don't hesitate to share what's good, what's going on. Just go ahead and unmute. Fred, I saw your hand go up. If you want to unmute for me and tell me what's happening.
Yep. So I had we got a pretty big, significant change order signed yesterday. It was kind of the whole project was hinging on a change order because they did so many changes on the building with a change order. I couldn't do the project at all if the change order didn't get signed. So it got signed. It's a $270,000 job. So good win.
Yes.
All right.
Fred. Yes. We love hearing you being stubborn about change orders. Oh, that's something that we preach all day long.
Oh, yeah.
Be stubborn about those change orders. Make sure they get signed. We will not move forward with the job until they are. And so, Fred, congratulations. Glad you're sticking to your guns. What other wins do we have going on this week? Clayton, go ahead and unmute and tell us.
You'd be happy to know that we finally finished Ron Terry's deal.
I'm not as happy as you are. I imagine you are just ready to celebrate.
Yeah, so we are, Dwayne and I are headed to collect today and be done with his completely. So on another note, we are closing tomorrow on 2 more projects.
Woo! What a good week, Clayton.
Oh, yeah.
It's super exciting. Clayton,
was
do
our
you
win.
want to share? Do you want to share your win from a couple weeks ago, when you went on a little trip?
We got married. Yeah, that's not really. That was 10 years in the making. So my wife made me do that.
Well, I
good.
loved seeing the pictures, and it looks like you guys are just so cute and in love, and congratulations for that as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes. What other wins are we having here today, guys? I know it's hard to follow that one up, but Laura, I think I may have saw your hand go up once, but you might have been cheering
She was
on others.
clapping. Yeah.
Love that.
Well, I got a win that I think is a pretty valuable one. So Get Better Bookkeeping, client that I work with. So a little different than what you guys do, but maybe a service you use. But he had a guy whose primary role was sales and really wasn't getting a whole lot of, there was tons of activity, but not a whole lot of meat from that activity. And you guys may experience some similar stuff with sales reps. What we did is just change the accountability structure. So we put in a meeting once a week for him to have with the sales rep guy and actually just talk about the same numbers he was, reporting on. And the guy also sends him a text of what he gets up to each day. But went from closing, a client a month for the bookkeeping company to, in the last month, closed 8 clients. Nothing changed aside from accountability, just setting up that regular meeting. And so something very simple, takes an hour or 30 minutes each week from the owner's time, but that hour is proven to be worth X dollars because of the 8 new clients. So huge win out of a small change. So really happy for Harley with Get Better Bookkeeping.
Yes, love that. For those of you who have waited to book a, meeting with your team weekly or doing KPIs for individuals, use that as inspiration. It is only going to help. It's either going to identify a problem that we can solve, or it might let you know that that team member needs to be replaced. But either way, it's going to allow your business to move forward. So use that as your inspiration. What other ways do we have going on here today, guys? Laura, yes. Tell us what's going on.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. So I guess in the context of a win, when we signed up with Redmond, we had 2 Google reviews and we've been in business almost 91 years.
Wow.
So our Google reviews, we've got like 15 or 18 of them now. We're super proud of that, but we just got a review from the city of Vallejo, a 5-star review, and I'll read it real quick because it's really special to my brother and I.
Yes.
Pierce Electric has completed all of our small and major electrical projects, always on time and on budget. Matt, who's my brother, is an expert and works diligently on all aspects of the job, making sure everything is done with a very high standard. City of Vallejo is proud to work with the Pierce Electric. So it makes me a little emotional, very proud. And for us, it's a big win.
Yes, Laura, that is a huge win.
That's big credibility there for sure too.
Yes, yes. And whenever you're feeling down, this goes for anybody.
Oh yeah.
Go read some of your reviews. Whenever you're having a rough day or feeling like the world's out to get you, or you've got that customer that
Real
just
terrible.
is a giant pain in the butt, go and read some reviews. Be reminded of all the people who appreciate you and why you do it. So, Laura, congratulations. I can't wait to see the reviews continue to come in for you guys. What else do we have going on today, guys? Mute and share. Put it in the chat if you don't have a mic. Going once. Going twice. Okay. All right, guys. Well, let's get into it here. What questions do we have today? What issues are we running into? This is the most powerful hour of the week because you don't just get your coach's opinion and advice, but you're going to get it from other people as well who've either been where you are where you are and are working through it. And so just really tap into the wealth here. There's so much knowledge to be had. And so if you have any questions about the business, employees, pricing, whatever, it's an open book here. So just go ahead and unmute and tell us what's happening.
Yep. And even if you don't have a question, if you had something that was significant this week, either significant learning or just a difficulty, that there's exactly what we're looking for too. Just providing opportunity for us all to benefit from.
Clayton, tell us what's going on.
So I don't have a question or anything, but this is some learning for other fellow businessmen. So recently we had a customer that's about 4 years old that decided that she was going to come back on us and try to sue us for materials that supposedly we didn't provide her, which is a million miles from the case. But nevertheless, it doesn't take but one person to put your name out there in the hat to draw straws at you to try to make you look bad. What I can tell you is to make sure that you run your business through an LLC or your S corp or whatever, and make sure yourself is protected. It is a very important role in the business to make sure that your personal is protected. And I didn't think I would figure this out or find this out, but now I am, and it's something that was pretty significant to me to know that I had done everything properly, and still somebody wants to shun your name or your business for a misunderstanding or something they didn't like. So that was some information that I wanted to share.
Yeah, and Clayton, another thing that you and I talked about is the importance of having not just estimates that people sign describing the scope of work and the price, but having working agreements that people sign that covers Draw schedules, change orders, termination clauses, all of these things that really protect you from these people, because these people will happen. It's just part of being in
Storage
business.
fees.
Yes.
Storage fees is an important thing to have on your contract. You may think it's minute, but in the eye of the law, you cannot charge a storage fee unless it's in your contract that you will charge storage fee for storing their equipment or materials at your job site if something happens. And it's an important thing.
Yeah.
So that's something that we are implementing into our contracts now is storage fees.
Yes, I would say anything and everything. Put it in the contract. Go over it. Don't just give somebody a contract and have them sign it. Make sure we are setting those expectations. I think that was kind of the main point of the last group call is setting expectations with employees, setting expectations with customers, with subs, making sure that communication is clear and all parties sign is what's going to keep you. Fortunately, you could be doing the best work possible and you're still going to run into people like this one that Clayton's dealing with. It's just nature of the beast. It's part of it. Protecting yourself is the best thing that you can do. What other questions do we have today or difficulties that we're running into? Ryan, yes.
Hey, so just a question on those storage fees. So are you saying that you charge storage fees when you've got all your material and all your stuff at the person's house? You're charging them to have all your stuff there? Is that what?
No. So I'll just kind of give you a rundown on what happened. So I had some special order material that I ordered for this customer. It was shiplap ceiling, a special order. I ordered it with her money. I ordered the material. Before it got delivered, we parted ways. After we parted ways, instead of delivering it to her house, I left it at my house. I put it in my shop to store it.
Oh, okay.
And so until we come to a resolution, my attorney advised me not to give the material to her until we come to a resolution on the contract and the agreement. So I never give it to her. After it's all said and done, it's been 4 years now, or 2 years sitting in my shop. And, I was like, well, what about storage fees? I've had this stuff and she's already finished her house, and what do I do with it? I can't really sell it because it was special ordered to her job. So what do I do? And he said, well, you can charge your storage fees if you have it in your contract. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where that come from. If the storage fee thing.
Yeah, a little bit of a unique situation, but definitely worth, putting in a contract, worth crossing T's and dotting I's always. What other things are going on this week? If nobody has anything, I'm just assuming that means we've all got it all figured out and everything's running perfectly. Clayton, yes.
So another thing that I want you guys to know is that the banking. I recently run into a contract with the bank. Sent a contract to the bank, and the bank didn't like my contract. It had price escalation clauses in it, and they wanted me to take the price escalation clauses out. There was some issues. I actually talked with Nicole about this. Her and I decided that was not a good interest of our deal, and the bank would not agree to our contract regardless of what we done. So
yeah, the bank was essentially trying to get Clayton to say, like, this is the price, and no matter what happens on the job, the price is not going to change. Like, despite change orders, despite unforeseen, the bank was like, we are not going, you have to, like, stay in this price. And so Clayton and I were like, if that is the case, probably shouldn't move forward with this job. We're going to end up losing a lot of money.
Exactly. So I actually told the bank the same thing that just Nicole just said, and I said no to it. And it made the cut rethink his situation with a different level.
Yeah, and that just goes to, guys, sometimes even if it's a big ticket job, it's a desirable job. If the profit margin doesn't work out the way that it should, if that customer is already turning out to be a giant pain in the butt, if they're not willing to agree to certain things, sometimes walking away from that job is the best thing for the company. And your coach is always there to help guide you with that decision as well. If you're like, hey, I'm kind of getting pulled two different ways. Probably Clayton taking a moment and looking at that and making the smart decision. What other
That's
things?
probably one of the. I was just going to say it's probably one of the hardest things for contractors in general to do is to say no to an opportunity. But the reality is, if you say yes to something that's a bad deal for your company, it just is going to hurt you way more than keeping busy is good for you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Ryan.
So I actually just brought on a temporary guy, hired him. We're doing a bunch of remodeling here at my home. So I figured that was a great place to try him out. It's going to be employee number one for me. So I'm pretty excited about that. So far, so good. I was just wondering if anybody could share like experiences with workers' comp, what to do, what not to do. I'm finding there's a lot of nuance to it, and just wondered if there's anything anybody could share. So, hey, I wish I had known this when I first started, or hey, I would have done it this way, kind of thing.
Laura, I don't know if you have a comment or a question, but would love for you to unmute and share.
Definitely a comment. So Ryan, one of the things that is going to be very important going forward when you have to have an audit is you want to have proper timekeeping practice, whether through an app, depending on how your accounting or your project management is structured, but the employee physically needs to keep track of their time. You can't write it down on a time card for them anymore and have them sign it. What we're using currently is through Buildertrend, and they have a great timekeeping app, but now we're switching over to House Call Pro, thanks to the recommendation of the Hive here. But I got busted on an audit. It's been a few years ago. And for many years, the foreman would fill out the time cards. He would edit the time, a lot of kind of sketchy timekeeping practices, but it's just the way we did it back then. And in today's day and age, you don't get to fill out your employee's time card, and the state of California particularly is pretty stringent about it. So I ended up paying some money because, we filled it out, and sometimes they'd sign it, sometimes they didn't, sometimes we didn't have a time card that week. So it's just be mindful of that as you're crewing up and getting a bigger labor force. You need a timekeeping system.
Yeah, and Ryan, Laura's in California as well. Some states just have different things, so her advice is going to be pretty sound with where you're at as well. And I think, and if I know that we probably have, out of the 27 people on this call, at least 10 of you, I feel like, are probably using House Call Pro. Can anybody testify to if House Call Pro has timesheets or somewhere to keep that? Could you just put it in the chat, or maybe just for Laura's sake?
We use Workyard.
Yeah, and with you being our remodelers are going to use different things for scheduling than our service guys typically. And that's why Laura's making this switch, is they're more of a service-based company. And so they're going to be, House Call Pro will be more applicable.
Workyard is the same way. It actually is all automated now.
Nice.
Nice.
It's actually really cool.
Laura, Arnold's Plumbing,
Yeah,
Dale
sorry.
Eads, he just put the House Call Pro does have timekeeping built into it. And so it looks like you're going to have that same functionality as Buildertrend did.
Nice.
Awesome.
Brandon, it looks like you had a comment to add as well.
Yeah, just having gone through a couple work comp claims, it's good to be familiar with the process if you do have a claim, and make your employees conscious of what that process might look like if they decide to file a claim. Because once you're in the middle of the claim, work comp does not let you interact with them. You can't give them advice. You can't do anything that would be viewed as tampering with that process, trying to get them back to work. And work comp is very particular in the middle of that. They'll be asking them questions, trying to figure out if their boss is trying to get them to lie to work comp. And even if you're trying to do the best job possible and give them the best advice, the hardest thing in the middle of that is you cannot give it to them. You can't tell them where to go to the doctor. You can't tell them how to take care of themselves. You can't even tell them to follow the work comp policy, really, because it's viewed as unsolicited employer advice. in the eyes of work comp. So it's worth the time when you have employees to take some time every once in a while and just say, hey, we've been having a couple of issues that could lead to a work comp claim. You guys really need to be conscious of what that means for you, because it's kind of joked about as like a vacation from work, but it's a miserable process for the employees to go through. It's even worse than it is for us to go through, really. It's an inconvenience for us, and we lose a good labor hand sometimes, but it's really hard for them to get back to the point where they can take a full paycheck again.
Yeah. Part of what's in there that Brandon shared is the expectation setting. We talked about it a little bit last week too, but with any new employee, the best opportunity you have to guide, shape, direct, whatever you want to call it, is in that very first day when they start with you, to set culture and just general expectations with them. Have a plan for that very first day. It is more crucial than you may initially realize, to say, hey, you're on full time now. This is how we keep time. This is how we manage scheduling. This is how we interact with the customer. Being very clear on day one, because you can change somebody later on down the road and try to build and develop them, but the best opportunity you have is on day one to really set the trajectory well for them as an employee and for your company. Looks like somebody put in the comments that Laura said she would add to make sure employees are properly classified. Also, the owner shareholder can be excluded from the policy. So good stuff.
Yeah, and that was basically where I was at. I hadn't needed it because it's just me on the job and an occasional sub or two. Working in the bathroom is not a whole lot of room to work. So now that we're growing, working on my kitchen at home, a bunch of things, say, okay, let's bring someone on, and okay, now that comes with a whole lot of other responsibilities. So just wanted to make sure I got some advice before doing all that.
Love it. Jordan, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, workers, something important to know that I didn't know when I first got it was they basically calculate what you think wages paid are going to be when you first start up with them. And that's what your premium is based off a percentage of what you pay in wages. And so that audit that Laura mentioned at the end of that first year basically is to see how much you paid out in wages. And so if you paid more in wages than what they calculated, they can come back and bill you for the additional wages. And that was something that surprised me my first time. I was like, oh crud, why am I getting a big bill, on top of my monthly, unless you pay out yearly. That was just something that to be mindful of. But also, I would say if you're in business long enough, at some point you probably will have a comp claim, and you'll be glad you had it. I've been in business 7 years now, and I thought, oh, we work safely and we do all these things, and we actually just had our first episode, and I use an insurance broker to do everything, and one of the reasons we're with the company that we're with is because they said they're really good about claims. They make the process really easy, where they've experienced some pretty difficult things with other companies, and they were right. We were able to. I took their advice and just went ahead and stayed with them, and then we had that claim, and it was like the easiest process I think I've ever could have imagined with it. So anyway, just I would say just like good need to know stuff about workers' comp.
Absolutely. Jordan, thank you so much for sharing. And of course, we hope we never have to use it, but would rather have it than not.
100%. 100%.
Yes, yes. Well, Ryan, we're so proud of you for starting this process of getting a first employee. It's glad to hear that so far so good with them. Hopefully that continues that trend and it allows you to be able to take on a lot more work a lot faster and we can really start growing this thing. So what other questions do we have here today? Concerns, grievances? You just want to complain about customers or employees and there's customers or other clients that would love to do the same, you know?
There's one more thing with that too, bringing on your first employee. Don't be afraid to charge full price per hour for that guy, even if you don't feel like his productivity is worth it, because a lot of these expenses that come with an employee have to be paid. So you got to have the money figured in for overhead to make sure that you have all the money to cover the additional expenses that your first employee adds aside from work comp.
Yes, that's so sound advice, Brandon. It's also why us as your coach, before you start expanding your team, we really like to make sure that we know your margins, that we're tracking your margins, how much is of your revenue is going towards cost of goods sold, towards profit, towards what you're paying yourself. Because as you grow, those margins shouldn't change a ton. We have this idea that they do, that they're supposed to. And it's like, no, your margins need to always remain healthy no matter what stage of business you are in. And so making sure that that is in place, that we're paying attention to it, that's going to give you a lot more confidence as you add to your team. You know, we're not going to be flying blind. You're going to know. Laura, I see your question here in the chat. She is curious what other contractors' policy is for a tardy employee. Maybe if we could get some feedback, guys, on if you use a write-up policy or how that works, and then maybe also how that conversation goes whenever you go to have that conversation with that employee. Would love to get some feedback.
I see Chris in here. I know we talked about this a good amount recently. Some of the management of employees and how to mitigate some of those issues if you're able to unmute.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, so we do a write-up policy. Bryce and I, we implemented a write-up policy for tardiness and missed days and being sick, and they actually have to, if it's something they know about or know they're in advance, they actually have to fill it out in advance. And the guys have actually been very receptive. It was actually a really good thing for everybody. One guy filled it out just this morning, even though it was kind of a last minute. He still actually came in and filled it out. He said he was sick today. He could only work for like 2 hours, and he filled it out, turned it in. It was no big deal, and it was cool. So they filled out whether it's like emergency got to take off, and they might fill out the day after, or if it's something planned. So they do that for vacation, requested days off, and sick days. And even though it's just something that they write down, they sign. It's very simple. It's nothing big deal. Just so we do have record of it, so we could see if there was a pattern of a problem. And it seems to eliminate part of it's just them writing it down, eliminates them doing it. Like it's just by de facto, they become less tardy because they don't have to fill out a sheet, and they become less late and miss less days because of it. So that's something we did, and it's been great and implemented and really good.
Yes, Chris, I love that you put that last part in. One thing that our boss Tim says all the time is that casualness creates casualties. If we are casual, if all we've done is verbally communicate, don't be late. Well, yeah, everybody knows that. Don't be late for any job. That's always the policy. Nobody should be late. But if there's no consequences, if there's no documentation, if all it is just a verbal warning or we're not taking it seriously, your guys are not going to take it seriously. And so just having simply a policy, Dale Eads, he put in here that he gives them a warning, then a and then can escalate to termination. He has a write-up policy. We created it together. It's based off of our template. He goes over it with every employee the day that they start. They sign it. If we make a revision to that write-up policy, which you are allowed to do, it's not set in stone. We print them all out. We go over them with the team again, set those expectations, have both parties sign. It's just covering your bases, setting expectations, and then you have to hold them accountable to it. And it sounds like, Chris, you're doing a good job of that. It's not like we just went over the policy, had people sign, and then we never talked about it or did anything again. No, if you're tardy or if you're taking a day off, you've got to fill it out. Like, that is the policy. And so,
Yeah,
Laura, we have templates for you if you need a copy, and we can make it yours. Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, please.
I was just saying, we had a company meeting about it and went over it one time and then just said, this is it. This is what you got to do. We had one company meeting with everybody involved, and was 7 of us there, and everybody was involved, and we just said, this is what we do now. This is the new policy. Here you go.
Yep.
Easy as that.
Non-negotiable.
But then following up, just like Nicole said, if you have a policy but it never gets enforced, you've undermined all authority you ever had with that. Even now your verbal authority is undermined because they know, okay, well, they said this really serious thing, but nothing happened. You were going to say something, Laura, sorry. Maybe.
I think she was just saying, I meet with her tomorrow, and I'll have a write-up policy for us to go over and implement.
Nice.
It's not your brother Matt, Laura, that we're trying to get in trouble, is it?
So sorry, I was just going to say, we have a new hire and he showed up, 2 minutes, 5 minutes late. And Matthew told him, he says, if you're going to be late tomorrow, just turn around, go home. And I'm like, Matt, I don't know that that's politically correct. I mean, maybe that's the way you were raised with the old foreman, that, you show up late, son, just stay home. But I don't think you can treat people like that in today's day and age. So we certainly need to implement a proper process that's politically correct and, human resources and all that stuff.
Yes. Although I don't disagree with Matt. I don't think you do either. but yes, we should have a system. What other questions do we have going on today? Fred with Kleber just asked for the write-up policy too. Bryce, I think, is that yours?
That'd be Travis.
We'll get you. Okay. Well, Travis will get that to you, Fred. What else is happening, guys? Anything good? Anything bad? Thoughts? Concerns? Going once?
I'd like to share something. I kind of missed the first part of the meeting. I assume everybody went over wins and stuff, but I talked with Nicole recently, so I have 2. I do have my office manager starting the 8th of July, which is very exciting. So I'm glad to get some stuff off my plate. While we're kind of on the topic of the workers' comp, I wanted to ask if anybody might have suggestions or what anyone else has done in regards to workers' comp for an office manager, if it's necessary, if it's not necessary. I know that might be a silly question, but jumping into having my first employee, it's certainly something I want to have my bases covered for. And then on top of that, another win. Over the last 2 to 3 weeks or so, I've had an absolutely insane influx of leads, which looks really good for us going into the rest of the year, and hoping to book out through the holidays and potentially even beyond that. So that's a really good feeling to have, especially because I'm about in my 6th or 7th month with Redmond. So it kind of like feels like it's all coming to fruition and feels really great. So 2 wins and then also a question there.
Yes. Riley, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, we'll take wins whenever we get them. Like, we love them. And we're so excited to hear that. Riley, would you kind of repeat your question here on what advice you're looking for? Just, I think the main thing is workers' comp necessary for if his only employee is the office manager. Is that kind of the main question?
Yeah, and I don't mean to sound ignorant to ask that question if it's required for every employee, but just having somebody that's not in the field doing, the manual labor, what sort of coverage should I still have? What's necessary? Or has anybody experienced similar situation where their first employee is more of an admin employee, and kind of how to handle that on the insurance side and workers' comp side?
Yeah, yes, you need it. It should be like a Office person is like a different classification than, like for me, with my electricians cost me X amount, office people cost X amount, and then project managers cost X amount. So you do have to have different categories of them, but you do have to pay it.
That's great advice, Fred. I think Laura kind of mentioned that earlier too, just making sure that everybody's classified correctly, because it's different. The coverages and the charges are going to be different. And anytime you're looking for like workers' comp insurance, anything like that, we always recommend shopping around a little bit, and we kind of recommend doing that on an annual basis. It will go up every year, and overall things might go up, but it's guaranteed to go up if you stay at the same place. And so just always, that's something that we always like to kind of look around. Don't set it and forget it.
And if your insurance agent or broker isn't sending you more than one option each time that they review policies with you, ask them to first. And if they still don't do it, you should get a different insurance broker, because they're supposed to be looking for the best deals for you.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Thanks for the 2 cents, everybody.
Yes, Riley. And we're so excited for you, sir. And just keep us posted on everything. And having that office manager in is definitely going to help you nurture these leads that are coming through, that right now you're trying to do it all.
Yeah, I definitely feel a little overwhelmed, but it's a good sense of feeling overwhelmed, I guess, but certainly looking to pass the load off and kind of get some help on the back end, like you said, nurturing and following up and just keeping track of everything. So I'm excited for sure.
Yes. Hiring an office manager, guys, is always an asset instead of an expense when done correctly. People tend to look at it as an expense, as, well, Nicole, I can just answer the phone. Probably not well, especially if you're out in the field and you're doing other things. I promise you, it is hindering your sales process, and you're going to be able to close more deals and bring in profit. When definitely that office person's always going to make you money. It looks like we've got some advice going on in the chat here. Love to see it, guys. Really appreciate the support coming in from other clients. What other questions do we have here today? All right. Like I said, guys, next week is a holiday week, and so we will not have group coaching on the 4th. If you need anything, do not hesitate to email your coach. Book a laser call is what we're here for. Just don't hesitate to reach out to us. Everybody be so safe next week with the 4th of July. I've had one of my clients is a firefighter, and every year the next meeting after the 4th, he comes to me with some absolute horror story. So none of us are going to be that horror story this upcoming week. We're going to all have a great time and be safe. But I guess we will close out this group call the way we do every single one. And so if I could get everybody to unmute, we're going to do a big 3, 2, 1 growth. I'm waiting to see the unmutes happen. All right, just seeing it. Okay, we're going to do a 3, 2, 1, growth.
Growth.
Bye, guys. Happy 4th.
Bye.